Again, where is share?
Do you have any recommended reading or references so I can really get my head in this to
Um,
be able to
sure,
tackle it?
I can send you separately. Yeah.
Okay, that'll work.
All right. So we were here. So we were talking about the benefits, and we said that it is going to help in our educational awareness to demonstrate something working. It'll also help people in achieving some form of financial benefit from participating in the such systems, and it may result in large-scale grassroots adoption, independent of political patronage that we have so far been seeking. Much like Bitcoin, for example, which, in spite of a large political opposition, it sort of made its way in spite of everything. So, if we were to launch a system of such a kind, what would be the goals of a local Gold Dinar based initiative? It should enable a common man to do all of the following things: give him the ability to avoid interest, hedge his wealth against increasing inflation and devaluation, find halal means of finance, uh, possibly increase the community's economic growth, and if all three fail to materialize, at least partake in revival of the Sunnah and service of Islam. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Whoever whoever revives my Sunnah after it has been abandoned, he will have an equal reward of all the people who act upon my Sunnah, even not decreasing from the reward of those who act on it." So the the things that we need to, in order to achieve these benefits, we first have to understand the mechanism of how the current system is negatively impacting us, so that once we understand what is happening to us, then we can devise a response strategy for that. So what is the primary issue that we want to address? The primary issue is interest itself, and then interest based money creation. So what is the traditional role of currency in a community or country? It is, first of all, a symbol of sovereignty. Secondly, it regulates and standardizes your trading and business transactions. Also, traditionally, it has given some level of spending power to the government by way of seigniorage and devaluation of the coins that governments use to issue. Now, modern currency has significantly increased the government's spending power through creation of fiat money, because that money does not require coins. It is just created out of nothing, and primarily it is created out of a usurious mechanism. So that would be prohibited in a Muslim country, but um, it is now the norm everywhere. The second benefit that currency gives to the governments is it gives them the ability to control the economy through the exercise of fiscal and monetary policy. Now, the way that the currency system currently works, it violates Islamic principles, and it negatively impacts the common man's financial well-being. So, if we are to uh, counter that system, then we can adopt something like a complementary currency mechanism. Um, what a complementary currency is, it is not a national currency. So we said that in our uh, three approaches to solving the problem, there is the political approach, which is to fix the system, and there is educational approach to educate people to demand fixing the system, and then there's the practical approach that while the system is not fixed, at least give the people something to use to hedge themselves against, to uh, give them an alternative. So if we are talking about an alternative here, which is a complementary currency, that means we're not going into the political debate of how we can nationally change the whole system. So a complementary currency is not national, it is not for profit, it is local, it belongs to a community, and it complements the existing currency. Now, complementary currencies are traditionally can serve a combined set of all three of these different features. So some of the features are just territorial features. For example, in New York, there was a very famous project called Ithaca Hours. And then in Massachusetts, there was Berkshires. These are all like local currencies limited to a city or a locality. Then there are other community currency projects like the time banks in Switzerland, which are not limited to a particular locality, but you can like people in different cities can maybe participate in them. So everyone contributes not their money, but their time, their service, and that gives them that increases their uh, account value in a time bank so that someone else is now liable to give you back his time, the same amount of time that you have given the community. So that's more like another form of a community currency kind of project. And then there are economic projects which are not related to a community or a locality, but they are related to a new kind of economic mechanism like the Bitcoin example. So the gold dinar based community currency can fall in probably each of these categories. It can help a locality, it can be an economic experiment, it can also build a diversified community around it. What can be a benefit if we adopt a gold currency kind of thing in some community in maybe the United States or anywhere else in the world? The first benefit, and this is not limited to gold currency, it is basically the benefit of any kind of a community currency, any kind of a complementary currency that you adopt. So, the first thing that they give you is a kind of reinvestment in a community. So, for example, a teacher is getting paid in dollars, then that teacher can buy anything manufactured anywhere which is available in the market. But if the same teacher gets paid in a local currency, then only local manufacturers accept that currency. And you are then forced to spend it on some local business because nobody else is going to accept your currency. Like if you have a currency of um, Austin, Texas, then you can only use it in Austin, Texas. You cannot use it anywhere else. So that kind of forces people to encourage local businesses and keep the money flowing within the same community, not letting it go out of their community.
That's a
Um,
real good point there. That's a
so the gold dinar can be that. It can help circulate your local money in a local community. If a number of people say we're going to use the dinar, nobody else is going to accept the dinar. So that is going to provide that benefit. I've heard very interesting arguments, I think, from some people who were involved in like the the desegregation movement. And there are opinions, I believe, which you are definitely in a position to know better about, but they cite that as possibly a negative economic impact of desegregation, that while we were segregated, our money was circulating within the community. And once we opened up, then everyone is competing with the the same capital and is going outside. So uh, that is very controversial. But if you adopt a community currency, that is definitely a benefit, that it forces people to support the community, support the local businesses by not by like a loose commitment that you can change at will when you're sitting in a shop and say, oh, forget it, I'm just going to buy what I want. But that currency kind of restricts you, that you're forced to do that. Once you've made that commitment, now you have that money in your hand, you cannot spend it anywhere else. So that is definitely a very good way to reinvest in the community. The second benefit we can get out of this is we can use it as a hedge against inflation. So national currencies lose their value over time. There is something called the quantitative theory of money, which says that the more money there is chasing the same number of goods and services, then the large amount of money is going to cause the value of the goods and services to increase along with the available money supply. So if you have $10 to buy something, the seller is forced to sell it to you for $10. But if you two people come to buy the same thing and both of them are holding $100, then the seller can say, okay, I'm going to sell it for 150. So, or whoever gives me 100. So the price jumps from 10 to 100. That theory was the traditional theory. It has morphed now, like more economic research has kind of added further qualifications to that, but the fundamental correlation still remains that as governments and banks issue more currency, the quantity of money available causes the money to lose its value. So a community currency is immune from the national economic forces that are shaping in your country, because no matter how much currency the government issues, the community is only generating as much currency as it needs. So there is no increase in the community currency if there is a corresponding increase in dollar supply. And then the price fluctuation of the dollar is also independent and not related to your community currency. So your people have a hedge against devaluation by way of that. Now, that is true for true community currencies, but it's a double-edged weapon. It's a double-edged sword, because if you make your currency independent of the national currency because you want to have it as a hedge against inflation and not lose value as the national currency loses value, but then you are also achieving that by decoupling the two from each other. And if you decouple the two from each other, that means that um, there is no controvertibility, like you cannot exchange one from the other. There's no conversion possible. There's no easy conversion possible, that the moment you want to buy something in dollars, something which is not available in your local currency, you want to sell something from outside the city, it's not available locally, you have to convert your local currency back to the dollar. But it is not possible to convert it back to the dollar because you have made it difficult, because you've decoupled them. But if you make it easy to convert it back, then the financial forces affecting that dollar is also going to affect you, because now you have a positive correlation between the two currencies because of their convertibility. So it is kind of like a double-edged thing. Gold is not particularly suited well for this, because gold, even if we adopt in a community currency, is still not independent of national forces impacting gold prices, international forces impacting gold prices. So gold and silver are good hedges against inflation in the long run, but in the short run, they are still prone to downward price movements as the price of gold moves up and down quite fast. This can be solved creatively. For example, the World Islamic Mint used excessive seigniorage in their gold coins to ward off the market pressure to sell gold as soon as its price increases. So what they tried to achieve was to artificially increase the price of their coins so much that it no longer was attractive for people just wanting to use those coins to trade in gold and silver. It was only for people who were committed to the concept of the currency and to keep using it in their local businesses, even if it raises in price, giving you that incentive that stop using it for trading, just sell it because you can profit from it. So you already put so much premium on the coin that that profit making is no longer possible for you. So that's one solution, but basically it is possible creatively for the organizers of the currency system to introduce mechanisms that prevent people from selling it, from profiting from it, and for using it for purposes other than the purpose of local circulation for which it was designed. But that does take some creativity on part of the managers of that currency.
Is
The
that what you did with the dinars when dinar color was reselling them?
so
And
my
the
my
price so that
dinars.
we can hold them more or less? Hmm.
So when I was selling dinars, I was selling them at the lowest premium as anywhere else in the world. Malaysians and Indonesians and South
Okay.
Africans, they were selling them way higher, because I was such a small scale operation that
Okay.
it just cost me a lot to manufacture them. But
Yeah.
I would really I personally dislike that excessive premium. I'm pretty sure that if properly organized, there may be other means to eliminate that uh, selling out of the currency. But this is nevertheless one way of doing it to increase the premium on top of it.
Yes,
So
that's true.
the next benefit we come to is after inflation hedge, the next benefit is a symbolic value of that currency. So even if it does not mean too much in terms of gold raising in its value and so benefiting financially the people who adopted it, it still has a symbolic value. Widely adopted and respected local currency can increase symbolic value of the community's position as a separate economic body. And what came to my mind from the experience of like black activism in the United States was Marcus Garvey's like Black Star Steamship. So that had no real economic benefit. It was just a symbol that we are now an independent
Yes,
community. Maybe I'm right in that
yes, I
analogy,
see it.
but
Mhm,
something kind of like that.
mhm.
So,
Yes, I see your point. Mhm.
in that sense, it can be a tool for Dava also. Like you can generate positive media attention to the currency, and you can project a higher economic strength of your community beyond its actual state and other like soft benefits that come with such a system. The next thing is your ability to raise capital. Now, community currencies can compete with national currency by a local fiat of the people. This is a little controversial. I don't know if the Gold Dinar movement is going to be receptive to this concept because it is not very well researched yet, but it is possible definitely in a community currency. So if you want to raise capital, a community can raise capital, and raising capital is really a sort of a collective debt which the community raises and then gives to its own people to support local businesses along similar lines as governments do at a large scale. So when your economy slows down, when the government say we want to give people a stimulus package, we want to, even now they're doing it, like you just ask the government, you have a small business and they're giving like COVID-19 relief loans, and there are a number of different initiatives by the Small Business Administration Department, and regular banks are being encouraged to give out loans to people. So what are they really doing? They are creating money, which is basically a debt taken off from their own future income, and they are redistributing it back to the people so that the people can start engaging in increased business activity because the people's own incomes have dwindled because of COVID-19. So it is like a classical Keynesian mechanism of stimulating an economy where the government says people don't have money and people don't have enough business activity going on in their communities. So let me just artificially borrow money and spend that money so that something happens, something moves in the community, some economic activity happens in the community. So Keynes is very controversial in the sound money movement, where the Austrian School of Economics comes in we want because there's the other notion that such artificial generation of a stimulus by the government results in the boom and bust cycles where the bubble is created of an illusion of economic activity, but because it is not empirical, it's not supported by actual economic health of the community. So the bubble eventually inflates and it results in a bust, and that's what happened in 2007, 2008 when the economic recession happened. So, however, all that theoretical economic discussion aside, it is possible for a community to locally raise debt, like debt against itself, in the form of a currency that it can issue, and promise to redeem it in future by way of its own services and products, and issue that money to local businesses so that they can start buying equipment and products and doing some activity that can get them on their feet to start running their business. So that is definitely something that can be explored at local levels by people. And this is one of the uses that community currencies in some traditional implementations have been put to use for this purpose. This also has the advantage that it can offset other social disadvantages. For example, the people in a certain community do not have a good credit history, so they cannot get a loan from the bank or a credit union. So you form your own local credit union in denominated in your local currency, and you can give them credit. Now, this does not even require a local currency. You can generate local credit in a community using dollars also. But what the local currency gives you is the same ability which the governments and the banks possess to create an illusion of a currency that represents your future income and have that currency reinvested in your local community to generate activity. So I find it very interesting and possible to be used, although this is a subject that has not really been researched a lot, at least not in the context of the Gold Dinar movement. So, what it means to the Gold Dinar is, like I said, is not really dependent on the Gold Dinar. Communities can raise capital through any form of community currency. However, if you do issue Gold Dinar certificate, for example, that can increase confidence in the issued debt. For example, the 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 businesses who you eventually ask to honor that raised capital or issued currency, they may have more confidence in a currency denominated in gold rather than a currency denominated purely in a community's faith or a community's collective backing. However, how to make that compliant with Islam, I think it is theoretically and definitely possible because debt is permitted in Islam. The only thing which is prohibited in Islam is the usage of debt as a medium of exchange. So if the raised capital is represented as debt and treated as debt and transferred according to the principles of uh, debt transfer in Islam, which means it cannot be discounted or sold at a premium, then definitely I think communities can find ways to use this tool also in their arsenal of local economic development.
Would
That,
this be the same as back in the ancient time, or when they used seeds, sands, beans, or whatever? That they all agreed to collectively sustain themselves, and then
that can be a form of it, yes. That
yeah,
that
that's
can
a
be a form.
form of community currency.
It could be definitely, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So in that larger sense, nowadays at least, currency has come to mean any receivable, right? So if a governments generate these receivables by government fiat because everyone trusts government, and the government says, I'm basically borrowing for my future income. But local communities can base the raising of this capital not necessarily on hypothetical future income, but some other ways of communities backing, for example, land that people own or assets that people own. You can issue certificates of ownership of those assets and use that as a currency so that you don't have to rely externally on a bank to take your property as collateral and issue you a loan. You yourself use your property as a collateral against an issued certificate, and then your community honors that certificate as a currency. So you're basically displacing the bank and the government and taking your economy in your own hands in that small manner. So you're becoming your own government in a sense. So that definitely some arrangement of that sort would be possible and Islamically permitted also if you follow certain rules related to debt exchange and handling. So that is a very interesting area of research that I think needs more attention in how community currencies can contribute to that. Now, there may be literature and research available on that, but not in the context of the gold dinar. All right. So the next item I have as a potential benefit is allowing people to avoid interest. So that is one of the primary goals of Islamic banking and of people who are doing this activism because the Quran says you must avoid interest because it is prohibited, and we have to find ways to avoid interest. So, interest-based loans can be avoided by partnership-based profit-sharing contracts. Um, Now, again, the dynamics of these partnership-based contracts are again independent of the currency regime. So this is also not related to Gold Dinar because if your community comes together and develops partnership-based financing, then you can do it as well in the dollar as well as in the Gold Dinar. You don't have to switch to the Gold Dinar as a prerequisite for doing this. So this is available anytime if people want to come together and form such partnerships based on the Islamic principle of the two contract types that I mentioned, which is the Musharaka contract and the Mudaraba contract. Now, implications for the gold dinar here, I would say gold dinar based loans may offer investors promise of a value appreciation independent of the business viability. So, some level of benefit may be obtainable here. For example, if you go to a potential investor in a business and you say, we want to have a partnership with you, you should join us in this business because we don't want to take an interest based loan. So you have money, why don't you and I become partners? So the investor may not have confidence to invest in your business, but if you tell the investor that I'm going to give you a return not in dollars but in gold, so the investor is now getting two potential benefits. He is getting the possibility of a return on investment from the business, but then he's also getting the possibility of a return on the value appreciation involved with gold because money devalues. So there may be ways of using the gold dinar based alternative currency to attract investment in local businesses based on partnership models. For example, a partnership can denominate itself in the gold dinar instead of denominating itself in the dollar, and that may be made to work for people. So, the conclusion to sum up the whole discussion, adoption of gold dinar as a complementary currency has certain soft benefits for the community, educational and symbolic. Adoption may also have some levels of economic benefits to the community as theoretically demonstratable. Now, by theoretically demonstratable, I mean there is literature and economic arguments supporting all the things that I've previously said in my slides, all the different points that have so far been mentioned. But now I'm going to qualify that in this last slide by saying it needs further research because I did come across certain research papers that doubt the economic impact of major community currency initiatives, even those which are believed to have had a major impact. For example, there are arguments that even Bitcoin, which is so widely successful, it has just become a dollar-based investment vehicle rather than a true alternative currency. And it has caused some people to become very rich by holding the Bitcoin because the Bitcoin is appreciated in value. However, it is doubtful how many people have actually benefited from Bitcoin through its use as a medium of exchange purely separate from the dollar. People have benefited in terms of its wild price fluctuations and speculation. People have benefited mainly through illegal activity. For example, Bitcoin is not subject to money laundering or government scrutiny and all that. But there are people who have researched the economic history of Bitcoin and they have argued that to a common man to whom a Bitcoin may have represented, like from a maybe a libertarian perspective, if you say Bitcoin has helped people uh, to shield them from all the negative impacts of the dollar, like devaluation and um, mainly actually it is devaluation because fiat currencies devalue and lose their value. So Bitcoin has appreciated in value, but it has not really generated a lot of purely trading incentive for communities. So maybe Bitcoin is a exceptional example, but people have studied a lot of other community currencies and they have concluded that the actual grassroots financial benefit to the people has not been as significant as would have been expected or as the media attention some of these currencies have gotten has resulted in. So that is definitely something that we need to research more before embarking on any ambitious gold dinar based implementation. Now, we
It sounds like the Bitcoin was more like a stock or something.
exactly
Yeah.
that's what it has become now. Yeah,
Yeah, and the people that had then some monies, they invested and they did make some money. But
they
yeah,
invested and
I
they
see
did make
what you
money.
mean.
Definitely.
Mhm.
So, from our perspective, we have been manufacturing coins and I've been distributing coins in the United States. We can definitely have the coins manufactured again, and Dinar Wakala can partner with local communities in a non-profit manner to provide dinars and not take any profit on that, just to help communities adopt it if there is sufficient interest. So, ultimately, the goal of Dinar Wakala itself was not to be a for-profit company, but really to help communities come together and use the currency. But till such time that the communities are mature enough to take independent ownership of the administration, then I had to step in as owner of Dinar Wakala to say, I'm going to manage the production and distribution till such time that it stands on its own feet. So definitely we can, as we move towards that, and we can definitely uh, try to go towards that goal of making independent community ownership that manages its own coin production. Lastly, community leaders need to get together for further economic modeling to devise a viable way forward, especially for communities in a minority setting. Community currency design is now even like a pseudo specialization. Like um, it is not it is not just a matter of producing coins and then expecting results, or selling coins and educating people to buy them. Trading and bartering and the economic benefit ensuing from that trading and bartering in dinar will not naturally result just by putting the dinars out there. So there has to be a set of community leaders who commit to orchestrating the rollout of the dinars and to define the parameters and rules for the whole alternative currency experiment, to let it grow in such a way that it is not hijacked like Bitcoin and it does result in actual benefit, financial benefit for the people that are involved. So it is a significant undertaking, and the only countries that have done it to a good extent, like were the Malaysian and Indonesian experiments. We can definitely learn from them, but there is some learning to do here before it can be successfully
We
modeled
can
and
go,
implemented.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question. The Native Indians, the Lakotas, they have their bank and their silver and everything. Is that that's a community currency, what they're doing?
Right. So the Lakota nation coins were
Yeah.
issued by a group in Dallas called the Open
Okay.
Currency Initiative. They eventually changed their name to Mulligan Mint after that author Ayn Rand, the libertarian icon. And I think that again got bankrupt and it changed. But what they were seeking to do was, because the Lakota Nation, what do you call that, reservation, right? It's a reservation, right? And the
Yeah, yeah, all with the United States and the treaties and everything, but they're
yeah,
supposed to have sovereignty to do
they
as
have
they
some level of
choose.
sovereignty. Yeah. So I don't think that became as successful
Yeah,
as they were
some
expecting
level,
it to
that's
be.
true.
Yeah. But to a small extent, maybe. The lowest common thing that we can provide to people in the simplest way is a hedge against currency devaluation. That is the simplest to
Uh-huh.
achieve and most immediate and visible benefit of investing in a dinar. The only problem is you have to put a guardrail around it so that people don't divest out of it as soon as gold price changes. So
Yeah, yeah.
that is really a problem there. So
It has to really be part of your way of life, how you sustain yourself in your everyday interaction.
yes,
Because, yeah, people just look at it as a commodity to invest, and
right,
they don't look at it as a means to sustain yourself within, the community.
yeah,
Yeah, I intend to just keep talking about it, and I have this group of it's just five of us sisters, and they're interested in doing something's investment. So I'm saying you're all Muslims, we're all Muslims. Why not find out about your way? What there's offered, what we have,
hmm,
try it. You try everybody else's. You don't know if you're going to get benefits, but just
right,
like you said, if you don't revive in the sunnah, and you don't get all of these big things by Allah, we're still getting something. Allah is
yeah,
going to note it,
definitely,
and that's why my enthusiasm is so what it is. I'm really teaching my grandson.
hmm,
He knows of them. He's familiar with it because he's 10 now. So in
okay,
his time, based based on that sunnah, it is going to, what Rasulullah Sallallahu says, it's going to be. So he'll have his ear will be weighed. That's what my grandma was talking about. So when I'm buying, I'm saving. I'm buying and saving because I don't see a way, any way yet to use them. But this business that I'm working with, I put on my we accept, the sign where it says dinar and dirham, and it looks
yeah,
like the Mastercard thing. I put that on everything, and it brings up conversation, and you get to see who's interested. And a couple of people said, "Oh, I got a few. Let's do this,"
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, but I don't know. Islam started with just that same thing, right? So we're
yeah,
not supposed to think that it's not possible.
yeah,
And I know
yeah,
it's only one student here. I'm only the one here. But
right,
your actions have shown that it's in your heart. This is what you do by
yeah,
law and for humanity, and you just keep going. That you just
definitely,
keep going and seeing what is to happen. So
yeah, yeah,
you're gonna have to do something, and you're gonna
definitely,
need money. Everybody's talking about economics, but you're gonna have to collectively come together and do something. You
yes,
can't do this thing all scattered about.
right, that
That's
is true.
the big lesson is in this coronavirus lockdown. Allah is teaching us a lot of things
Yep,
that we're not doing the way He's given, or look at what I told you to do, or correct this. Go through this, do this better.
yep, yep,
So
definitely.
hopefully, that's why I say people are listening a little more so than before. And yes, all of the scholarship that's on the internet, they're young and inexperienced, and many of them just have the Islam from a box. And I'm
Right,
not saying that they don't know, but they don't have enough life experience and exploring and reflective time to say, wait a minute, Allah gave us a system how to economics too.
yeah,
Let me look at. They're not there yet. They're
right,
they're 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 just not there, and they're a
that's,
little bit. They need some heart work so they can listen.
yeah,
They want to shut you down before they listen. So that means they need some real traditional Islam where you got to work and clean that heart out a little bit
yeah,
and get those attributes that get in the way. So I understand. I'm very grateful for this time with you and
sure,
what you're
sure,
doing. It seems like a lonely road, but believe me, Allah is very pleased with you because you're doing what He asks of you
right,
against the odds.
yeah,
And so that's how I look at it.
yeah,
That's
inshallah,
truly. So
inshallah,
I need to have something which how you presented was, like you said, more of the mindset of people, how they think. you gave the nice comparison,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
then maybe you can get them to a higher level of the value of this. So how
Right.
can I? Do you have a source of reference that I should study from to get it in my head that I can answer those questions and articulate it better than how how you understand, but you can't get it out to people?
Right. I think there are two classes of people that are
Mhm.
um, whose interest levels are triggered by different um, sources. So there is the more academic oriented people who need
Yes.
to be convinced through uh,
Hmm.
formal references and to to
Hmm.
explain to
Hmm.
them what the flaws in the
Hmm.
system are, what are the Islamic injunctions that apply to the currency system. And there are other people who don't want to go into the details. They have a sort of an intuitive idea of how, like, in fact, the
Hmm.
intuitive idea of the flaws in Islamic banking is universal. Like, you talk to any person, everybody knows that it's sham. So uh,
Yeah.
those set of people may get more interested if you can give them some kind of a viability of the project or the economic benefit of the project to the people, rather than the theoretical and academic arguments in
Yeah.
favor of that. So you're talking to like
Yeah.
Sharia advisors and imams and religious leaders. You would use more like the Quranic injunctions and the fiqh rules to explain to them why they need to do this. And then for the other set of people who are more interested in community growth and benefit, you go to them with a different set of arguments that say how the Gold Dinar can like protect their investment or help them save their money and bring the community together on an economic platform. So those are, but I think ultimately the best way to convince people is to show them something tangible or something viable that they can
Yeah.
sign up
Yeah.
to and sign into rather than just a pamphlet that they hold in their hand. So I think one of the first things we
Like your contract. Hmm.
probably
Excuse
need to
me,
do is to
like the contract when you were selling the dirhams, and
that
then you made it into a physical. This is what we do, and this is what you get,
that
and
is
this is.
possible.
I still have that contract. It's beautiful.
Right.
My imam, Sheikh Imam Sheikh Tijani of West Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, he asked me because I gifted him with the dirham,
Mm-hmm.
dinars, and nicely. And he was so amazed at how, he knew about Malaysia and everything. He said, "Oh, this is beautiful. Where does this come from, America?" And I told him the whole story.
Right.
So, because I had in my mind, this is the place you can get this started. So it was
Definitely.
quiet for years. He didn't say anything. Then last year, they had a big gathering
Mm-hmm.
at the Turkish uh, Diyanet in Maryland,
Mm-hmm.
and they came from everywhere, and they were talking about financing.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Do you know enough do you feel you have enough to speak about," he called it "sunnah money, the real money?" And I told him, "No, I don't feel that I have for what they're going to, because the competition of the people, it was like, how are you going to come in here and deflate my Islamic banking thing? You know what I mean? Because it was
Mm-hmm.
the Islamic banking way, not
Right.
and the American Western way. And then I'm going to come up here knocking all those things. And he said, "Are you ready to speak of it yet?" So I said, "No, I don't have that kind of, I believe it. I know it. I'm doing it, but I don't have enough to stand and and answer those questions that's going to be thrown at me in a way that I don't mess it up." Instead of, I said, "But in time." So I
Okay.
hope to see him at the end of the year. And he's going to ask me again. And I'm going to say, I have more resources now. My focus is on it now.
Oh, we can make you
because
an
he
expert
told
by that
me,
time. Just let me know. Yeah.
yeah, he told me, he said, yeah, it would be Wakala. That's what they're saying. We need a Wakala. I said,
Okay.
oh, you know? He said, yeah, I know, but the people don't know. They don't understand this. They
Yeah.
maybe this is something you're to do. So this is my reason to be able to not have it, master it, but
Hmm.
I'm understanding it more because the need is now more than ever. So I'm just so
Sure.
grateful.
So tell you what, you and me, we can get together, and I can get you some literature and whatever presentation material you need, and we can definitely
Yes,
prepare you for that.
yes,
And then we can also
right,
probably start working on getting the coins back, because nothing compares with
yes,
having them in your hand when you talk. So
yes, yes.
let's work on that. And so the
You
meeting time is,
meaning, are you meaning and getting investment?
we can do that too. We can revive that too. Yeah, definitely. So
I'm thinking that way because, as you said, that's the common man thing. How can I make some money?
yeah,
How can I, that's all they're thinking right now.
that's true.
And I hear them. What are we gonna do? And so I'm saying, if we're all Muslim. Don't you think Allah has a way?
Yeah,
But you don't think He has a way. So that's what I'm saying. That investment, people were just the few that I knew and sent. They just took it just because I said it was available and that I had did it. Did you do it? I said, yeah, and I showed them, what I had, and then your integrity with how you handle it. It wasn't all these long gaps and excuses in emails, and it's coming where the trust is, drizzling down. They was like, oh wow, I got to get some more, and then it fades from their mind when they're getting paychecks and that life is fine,
yeah,
to them.
right.
So, but now I would like to be able to say, let's begin to invest in building our community,
Okay,
and
sure.
that's what that is. Yeah. It's simple. It's not academic, heavy duty.
Okay,
But and I use my grandson as an example of, I might not use it, but do it for your grandchildren or your other generation. They kind of like that.
cool, cool.
You see?
All right.
Yeah.
I'll get in touch over the phone, and then we can
Okay.
discuss some follow-up items. And
Subhanallah.
thank you very much for your time.
Yes, and thank you for
All right,
giving me your time. And you still have my number? It's the same.
I do. I have your number.
All right. Okay. I thank you.
All
And
right,
have
thank you so much.
in Pakistan.
Yes, I'm in Pakistan right now.
Okay. I look forward from hearing from you, and I'm going to do the things I can do
All
here.
righty.
Thank you so much. Alhamdulillah.
Yep.
Jazakallah khairan.
Mm-hmm.
Alhamdulillah.
Thanks.
Ameen. Ameen.